Welcome into the Legislative Lounge, guys. I am your host, Natebige, and my co-host here, Professor Mike. Man, do we have a show for you guys tonight. We are going to be diving deep into what's on everybody's mind here tonight, and that is the election and everything surrounding it. From all the way back to 2020 until now, we're going to be diving deep into a lot of interference that we are seeing and being given information on in a multitude of different ways, facets, recordings of MSNBC producers, of Georgia election boards, Google producers. It is a load of information, so buckle up and let's get into it here. So, Mike, when it comes to the election interference, that's a hot topic and has been since 2020. Go ahead and get us into it a little bit.
Well, when we look at the term election interference, right, we really have no legal definition, which is really weird. But the Google definition, which Google is king as we know, kind of describes it as any process that seeks to disrupt the election process, right? So, and that's very bland. So that could be misinformation, that could be propaganda, that could be sabotage, that could be any type of unconstitutional action.
And also misinformation, disinformation, a lot of these different areas that we're going to be getting into. But one of the biggest things that I'm seeing as of lately is the issue that a lot of people are just really outright denying the fact that there are interferences with our elections when it's so blatantly obvious. I mean, a lot of people like to bring up the fact that, oh, well, Donald Trump's 64 cases, they didn't go anywhere because there was no evidence. Well, in all reality, if you actually read, a little bit and got into those cases, you would actually see that all 64 of them were dismissed on standing. So let me go ahead and explain that, because obviously people don't know what that is. The problem is that a lot of people will say and sit here until they're blue in the face. Well, there was no evidence. That's why they threw it out. No, standing has to do with how the actual lawsuit is actually presented in regards to the wording and their legal basis of it. So it could be that there was an incompetent lawyer, which is the case, that presented it and how they wrote the actual initial lawsuit for review, because there is a standing review to begin with to see if they even can get to the evidentiary basis. That's the problem. There was no actual evidence that was reviewed. So a lot of these cases are where? They're nowhere because nobody actually looked at them, which is fully unconstitutional due to the fact that as the president or somebody that's running for president has the constitutional ability to challenge elections, and it wasn't granted to Donald Trump. So what we're going to do here first is I'm going to show you something that a lot of people keep denying that never happened. There is no evidence. There is no evidence. Well, Georgia Election Board has a whole different idea of what you may see as no evidence. And here's just a little clip from one of the the primary member of the Georgia Election Board, and we're going to go ahead and play that now.
That a county's negligent conduct of an election, and reveals the reality of how difficult it is to have one's grievances addressed in a timely manner, if at all. But this complaint, especially coupled with the full hand count audit complaint by the same complainants, suggests election conduct that is unacceptable. And the state election board should address each complaint and then consider the appropriate action. First, the problem with election day count and the failure to properly secure, protect, and document the safety and authenticity of the votes from 10 advanced voting locations is appalling. Record keeping is abysmal. Proper documentation to ensure the public that votes or ballot boxes have not been tampered with is shamefully poor. The opportunity to electronically stuff the ballot box was obviously available, and that has left a film of doubt and suspicion over Fulton County that may be impossible to wipe away unless something is done to ensure that there's not a repeat of multiple violations. Second, as far as the complaint of the recount, someone should be held accountable for the adding votes electronically, or failing or refusing to produce ballot images for the complainants, and maybe even the court, or for double scanning of ballots. Dominion claims its machines do not allow double scanning of thousands of votes. The question remains, how did that happen? Did Dominion lie to the state of Georgia? Double scanning and double counting of votes is fraud. It may be unintentional or just negligence, but nevertheless, it's vote fraud. The FBI states that voting twice is a violation of law. Then officially counting votes twice is also a violation. It's a federal election crime and a part of the public corruption unit of the FBI. The election official counter that was counting should be identified, counting erroneously, and held accountable. The results of the RLA hand count and the machine recount should be officially amended and reflect the correct totals. The recount with 17,852 ballot images and more than 16,000 electronically added votes should have those votes expunged, or the paper ballots should be investigated by an independent investigator. Ballot images were required to be made and preserved as of February 2020. With the failure to retain 380,000 ballot images from the November 3rd election be indicative of gross negligence? 10 scanners from advanced voting have failed to provide required documentation necessary to confirm that they were used in the elections, were safely secured from tampering, or that the votes attributed to the 10 scanners were authentic. Election supervisors must provide documentation and demonstrate correct procedure for maintaining memory card security. The county broke the necessary audit trail to validate the authenticity of the votes. Either the votes should be invalidated or the paper ballots must be investigated to prove their veracity. If this is the way to conduct an election, then no election should be certified as true and accurate.
Man. So we're talking about Georgia here, right? A state that was won by what? It was like 80, it was like 10,000 or 11,000. They have into question over, when you total it all up, it was like 1.1 or 1.2 questionable votes in that entire state, along with, in Fulton County specifically, is talking about nearly 400,000 votes. That's the issue. I mean,
you see this all over. You see this all over the country, and it's not just Georgia. We see this in. We see this in Arizona. We see this in Wisconsin. We see this in Ohio. We saw this in Pennsylvania, and they're coming out even in Texas. And these irregularities, they're coming up, and
so yeah, I just find
obvious.
I find it weird that people are sitting here still trying to say till they're blue in the face that there's no evidence, when we have literal state bodies like the Georgia Election Board saying that there is issues and we have proof. And yet we continuously hear, well, Donald Trump was just asking for, to find some votes. Well, I mean, there's 400,000 of them in Fulton County alone. It's just wild to see this.
There's no widespread voter fraud, but in the state of Georgia, there's 1.6 million questionable votes.
To the point where we're at now, the result of this is that Georgia Election Board actually voted to change, there wasn't a change, to reinforce a law that's already in place, saying that in regards to the ballots, they have to be hand counted and verified by hand in person before they can be certified. Well, just recently, which is, mind you, I preface this and emphasize this by saying this is already something that's in their law. But a judge just issued a stoppage to this reinforcement, so that way the Dominion voting machines, which is a whole other topic that we can get into, will then count it, because there's a deadline. There's a deadline. They didn't care about no deadline in 2020.
It's wild when you see this type of thing come up, and the fact that there's so much denial on every platform of social media, especially in the mainstream media. There's denial about widespread election interference. And this is the very definition of election interference, when you have double counting and wrongful scanning. And this occurred everywhere. And then you have interesting enough, what happened here in Arizona was somehow machines went down. That's
Oh,
very
no, I heard about
interesting.
that.
And and that happened in 2022 as well.
Yeah, I mean, there was like what? There was like a couple dozen different voting locations in what's that? Phoenix
Yeah,
County. What's the county of
Phoenix,
Phoenix? Yeah, in that
Maricopa
county
County.
alone, Maricopa County, there was dozens just in that county alone, which is what, the most populated, isn't it? Just like Fulton
Yeah.
County. It's just funny how that works because we're gonna get into it here shortly, but Detroit is a cluster of just wow. But we'll get into that here soon. However, when it comes to election interference, not only are we seeing governmental bodies talk about it, we also have literal video of manipulation from media. It's just gone so far. We know about it. Google itself is currently in a lawsuit because of their manipulation of their system in regards to how things are generated. Plus, a lot of people already know Google is a site where you can pay to play, basically. You pay to put your stuff up front, regardless of whether or not it's even relevant. And what we have here, James O'Keefe, if you're not familiar with him, he runs a company now called OMG. It used to be Veritas Project Veritas, and he has phenomenal content. I mean, just phenomenal content. And what he was able to do is he was able to infiltrate one of Google's sales and growth strategists and get them on camera saying that they're literally manipulating Google's algorithm to favor Kamala Harris. So we're going to play that for you.
Was essentially promoting through its ads like rhetoric that was very like pro Kamala, and like it seemed to link out to like legitimate like news publication sites. So it like seemed like it was an ad from PBS, but it was really an ad for the Kamala campaign or whatever. But it's like you go to Google, they're reorienting the search engine such that Kamala is more, favored. Facebook, I feel like, is promoting, content that is favorable towards her. A lot of the AI stuff that's sort of like proliferating right now is doing so in a way that's like generally favorable to her. I mean, Google's a very liberal, progressive company. If they have a belief that one side will allow them to make more money, I don't think it's like at the very, very top. I don't think it's political. I think it's like economic. I think it's all about like the share or the stock price. These political headlines that are generating clicks, which generates ad revenue. It's all fueled out of hate. I work in ad sales, sell people ads, tell them to advertise on Google. Yeah.
So you sell ads for Google?
Essentially, yeah. It's not really sales. It's more like consulting, but we're essentially trying to get them to spend more money on Google products. So our entire suite of products are ad related. We try to get them to spend more money. Google ads, like there's like a headline, there's like a description, then there's like a sub headline or sub description or whatever. And Google was essentially promoting through its ads like rhetoric that was very like pro Kamala, and like it seemed to link out to like legitimate like news publication sites. So it like seemed like it was an ad from PBS, but it was really an ad for the Kamala campaign or whatever. And it's like this is like a coordinated effort by like big tech, like big companies to like try and get her to win.
Do you think that's what it is?
Yeah, it's definitely coordinated. Yeah, you like zoom out and like look at like who's really pulling, the strings of like this country. It's like a handful of billionaires. A lot of them are in tech, and it's like tech controls the media essentially. Not completely, but it's like you go to Google, they're reorienting the search engine such that Kamala is more, favored. Facebook, I feel like, is promoting, content that is favorable towards her. A lot of the AI stuff that's sort of like proliferating right now.
So what? This is Google, the main source of information that most people go to. Now, I preface this by saying, like, I tell people all the time, if you're going to get on a debate, because that's what we do on TikTok and other platforms, do not be a Googler, because in all reality, first of all, you have this, and we've known for a while now that Google, you pay to play. You pay to put your stuff at the top. So if you're actually getting real information, you have no clue. But we definitely know now that they're manipulating their system for the candidate that they choose.
Well, we've always known, but it's nice now to have actual video proof. And people are still going to, the naysayers are still going to be like, oh, this is doctored, this is fake news, this is misinformation. But this is one of their ad people telling you that the system is built for one side of the, a particular political party. And that political party is backed by big tech, which loves, back to our last episode, to censor any type of opposition.
Absolutely. And it goes even deeper to like when it comes to this election interference, especially around Donald Trump. It's just crazy how they're just manipulating everything from news revenues or to news ads to Google to Facebook and even in the court system. I mean, we all know about this. Go ahead.
You know how many things I've gotten in the mail, that are pro Kamala that are trying to tie Trump to Project 2025? I've gotten like over a dozen. And it's like the founder of the Heritage Foundation stepped out because of the controversy of that. There have been several talks about lawsuits in regards to, connecting him to that. When there's been no connection, there is no connection.
All right. And it's wild to see everything playing out the way it is, because we know that everything when it comes to the lawsuits is a farce. Me and you get into it deep. We've actually read through the court cases, the 34 counts. When it comes to the Eugene Carroll case, which is just crazy. But now we actually have video evidence of the public affairs chair of the U.S. Justice Department that is going to tell us that he himself believes that everything that's going on is completely bogus as well. So let me play that for you real quick.
Actual felonies? Because I was pretty sure that
he was stacking charges and rearranging things just to make it fit a case. No, to be honest with you, I think the case is nonsense. Every real estate person in New York does what he did. Nobody's ever been charged with this until him. And that's why the surging of the public. It's a perversion of justice.
those felonies did nothing to stop Trump from running.
No, in fact, they made him more relevant.
Did that backfire?
Sure did.
And that was that Alvin Bragg's choice to do that? Or why?
Because Alvin's very ambitious.
What do you mean?
He wants to be, something. I don't know what. Mayor. I'm not sure what he wants to be, but I know he's not happy just being the DA of New York County. So this is like before he decided to prosecute Trump. Did you know who he was? You do now.
What was the point of even doing it then?
To make him a convict.
To make him what?
A convicted felon.
What if he can still run for presidency and...
Yeah, but it affects his candidacy if he's a convicted felon.
I was trying to count the losses. I was like, I wonder how many are against him. I think it's for lawfare.
Yes.
That's what I've gathered from that.
That is what they call it. I mean, at the federal level where I work, there is a 90-day rule where you can't make any decisions on cases that are going to affect an election. That rule does not apply at the state level because the state level is like the Wild West. They're like idiots. They don't care. They're all political. So yeah, this guy's probably going to try to lock him up, and it's going to be ugly. They're so obsessed with getting him.
Who is they? How do they get away with that?
It's a different system. Like the state level and the federal level are like night and day. it's hard to explain, but like there are so many more rules in the federal level, and they're like the threshold for a crime is so much higher. Like I said, like the state level is like the Wild West of law. It's like very, for lack of a better term, unregulated. Less checks and balances.
Is that the strategy against Trump? Just hit him with all the legal battles all across, like the
100%.
Fannie Willis, Georgia stuff. What do you think about that case?
It's a travesty of justice. To put it mildly, it's a mockery of justice.
Wow. This is the Chief Public Affairs of the U.S. Department of Justice saying it is a travesty of justice.
I mean, we already knew that these people had no real cases or evidence against Trump. And like you said before, you and I have delved deep into the actual court transcripts. And you see it in the media where they're mislabeling things. Like, he's a convicted felon. No, per the U.S. Department of Justice, he's not. He has to be sentenced. So he has yet to be sentenced, and that occurs after the election.
And and besides all of that, is how they even brought up the New York 34 charges in the first place, and the fact that they went out of their way to change laws and actually went out of their own jurisdiction because they used a federal election crime to even bring the case forward. So there is a multitude of reasons on why, first of all, Trump is going to win an appeal, and then why it's going literally nowhere, and why it's been stalled on his sentencing again and again. So it's
this is if there was a textbook, this would be textbook definition of election interference, because it's adopting a political persecution aspect to it. You're interfering with any type of campaigning. Which it backfired on them, obviously. He's never been more popular than 2024.
Yeah. And talking about campaigning interfering, we're also receiving information from the state of Oregon, where the state legislature provides pamphlets of each candidate that's running for president, whatever office. But in this particular instance, it's the presidential packet. However, this Oregon man that we're about to play has a surprise in regards to the Oregon pamphlets.
Yeah, it's the voter information pamphlet.
Okay, so this is the Oregon voters pamphlet, right? So as an informed voter, you're supposed to be able to like read all about all the candidates, all the different, political parties, everything, right? Okay, so we've got Robert F. Kennedy Jr., right? He's not even running as president anymore, dropped out. Chase Oliver, I don't even know who the crap that is. He's obviously not going to win. Then you have Jill Stein. Nope, probably not going to be the one. Then you have this weird blank space here. It's just blank. Then you have Kamala Harris, Tim Wolf, and then where like J.D. Vance should be, it's blank. And then it goes into U.S. representatives. Isn't that insane? I mean, everybody's like, oh, Oregon is like, so liberal or whatever. They don't even put Donald Trump on the thing. That's insane. Like, this is why we need, like, an electoral college for states,
Yeah.
So in the state of Oregon, they're not even showing the information about it. Yeah, I don't know if that's not some kind of a manipulation of the campaigning. I don't know what is.
I would challenge everybody to look at your voter information pamphlets and check to see what they actually see, because a lot of us just we get them in the mail and we just kind of toss them to the side, and a lot of us just kind of check the boxes as far as voting. Actually do your due diligence, read through the pamphlet and correlate it with what's on your ballot. That way you're an informed voter, and if there's any discrepancies like the one we just saw in Oregon, bring them up, make a video, or you can send them to us and we'll blast them. We love blasting people like that.
Absolutely. And, speaking of ballots, man, there is a whole nother world of issues going on with the ballot system right now, especially when it comes to mail-in ballots. We're seeing issues with people having, their ballots found in storm drains and being tampered with, and a bunch of other stuff. I mean, it's crazy. So I've got a couple videos here that I want to quickly show until we can get into like the nitty-gritty of what's going on behind the scenes. But this is just another example of people literally messing with individuals' ballots.
Already sealed. Look at this. It's already sealed. And not only that, but my external mailing envelope is also already sealed. Look at this. This is how it came. Already sealed. So if I'm going to use these, which I'm not, but if I'm a busy person and maybe I don't open it until the day of the election, because let's face it, people are busy, I'm going to have to open this envelope, use a letter opener or a pair of scissors or something, tape it shut, I don't know. And same thing with the exterior envelope. And it's going to look like my ballot has been tampered with, which means it's not going to be counted. So I'm going to be calling my county election office tomorrow and see what to do about it. But I have to imagine that there are people that are busy, or they open it at the last minute and they just know that it has to be postmarked, right, by election day.
So if you receive a ballot in the mail, guys, make sure you pay attention to it. Don't open it. Don't do what she said about a letter opener. Do exactly what she says at the end and contact your county election board and let them know that people are tampering with this information. I mean, what else can we do? Well, what else can we show that there is just obvious, widespread fraud? But we have more. Mike, what are your thoughts on that?
They've been coming in today by the boatloads.
I know you didn't see that video until just now, Mike. What's your thoughts?
Well, it's obvious. Like we saw this in 2020, and people denied it all across the country that this wasn't happening. We saw this on the famous 2,000 mules that we can't discuss, and there was video camera footage, like 40,000 hours of video camera footage. Amazing. And to see this happening to this woman, like, she's one of probably millions. There's probably millions of instances where this happened, and people are just kind of like, oh, this probably just happened by accident. They're not taking it seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to give a big shout out to everybody in our comments real quick, just as a side note. Thank you guys for coming in and supporting us. Hopefully this information is something that, is of worth to you, so you can start paying attention to what's going on around you. But yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to, we even have, I've got videos of a galore in regards to an MSNBC producer showing that that they're manipulating their broadcast, which I'm not even going to show because everybody in here knows about MSNBC, CNN, and shoot, even Fox is a bias in their own right. But what a lot of people don't know is all these companies are owned by the same organizations. So there's really no point. However, there was one particular man that was walking down the street one day, and he was able to find a storm drain full of ballots. So let me see if I can get that up for you guys real quick.
Was doing some landscape work at his Sierra Madre home Saturday when he saw something strange in the storm drain next to his house. Nearly a dozen mail-in ballots. He says he got on his hands and knees and started scooping them out and noticed the addresses were from his Arcadia neighbors a block away.
And of course, we're trained here to keep stuff out of the storm drain. So I got down on my hands and knees and dug around a little bit and started pulling it out. And I pulled out a bunch of junk mail and Ralph's ads and Aldi, and these ballots were mixed in with the junk mail.
Jason.
So we heard about this all through 2020 in regards to random drops throughout the city where ballots were found in trash cans. They were found in the dump. They were found in, the big trashes behind, commercial businesses and whatnot. And here we are again, 4 years later, dealing with the same issues of ballots that should be going to individuals that requested them, but yet they're being tampered with even further.
It really calls into question the integrity and the, like, is it realistic to have mail-in ballot, mail-in voting? Like, should we as a nation require that you show up day of, right? Like, I think this calls into serious question, like the integrity of what we're dealing with.
Mhm. Now, I know a lot of people, especially in the GOP in my area, they don't agree. There's people that don't agree with that as well, and I can see their side of the point. But we've got to do something in regards to this, because one of the biggest issues that we're dealing with is a new scheme that seems to be on the precipice that people don't know what's going on with. Is that in this month of August, the DNC actually announced an initiative of around $300,000 that they were going to invest in abroad voters, which a lot of people don't know is called the Uniform and Overseas Citizens. Oh, now I'm blanking on it. The overseas it's their absentee voter ballots, basically. So in that sense, just to show it here, this is the article in which they were showing. Hang on a second here. Technical difficulties. There we go.
In short, this is called 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗑𝗧.
Yeah, 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗑𝗡𝗧 is what we call it for. So here's the article. Now, I am so happy that I took screenshots of this back like 3 weeks ago. I did a video on this because all of a sudden on Wednesday I tried to go find it, right? So I could bring up the whole page for you guys. Well, at bare minimum, it's been completely buried to the point where I wasn't even able to find it. So it just goes to show, but they're doing anything and everything, because the problem with this is that, when it was brought up, it actually caught the attention of Donald Trump and a lot of the Republicans. See, the problem with this strategy, I guess you could say, is this particular area of the actual article itself, where they outline that they have a concerted effort in helping fund their efforts to win the votes of approximately 9 million Americans, right? See, the problem with this issue, though, is there's not 9 million Americans that are living abroad, including the military. What is actually being shown through the government, you can go to a government website of FVAP.gov, and they'll show you they have a total of 4.4 million U.S. citizens abroad. And of that, they only have 2.8 million of them that are even eligible to vote. So we ask you, Democrats, that continuously say that, we're not, election scheme fraud. Where is the other, 6.2 million voters coming from? I mean, are they just coming out of thin air?
Well, I mean, again, this is government introduced election interference, and it's misinformation and propaganda, and they're trying to take away your vote, regardless if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent. They're trying to decide for you, and that is not the principles to which this country is built upon. And
Absolutely.
it's so important, like in the next 2 years, when voting really, really matters. Because right now we're voting for the president. In 2 years, we'll vote for, members of Congress. That's when you have the ability to get these career politicians that are trying to take away your God-given rights, get them out of office, put somebody in that actually shares your values. Regardless if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, I don't care. We need to get these 100-year-old dinosaurs, 80-year-old dinosaurs out.
Well, even so, that looking at your down ballot is just as important. It's more important than the president, and a lot of people don't look at that. Who are your state representatives? Like, who's in Congress? Who's in Senate of your own state? What about your county sheriff? What about your, the judges in your area? Those are things that you really should be looking at first and foremost, because everybody knows who the president is, right? Or who's running for president, because it's televised, it's on everything. You see it on YouTube when you're watching a video about making a birdhouse or whatever, and oh, there's Kamala Harris, there's Trump. But do you know who's running in your area? You know, the people that are actually can affect your daily life. So definitely take a look
But,
into who
you know,
is in your area. Go ahead.
what Megan and I like to do, Megan, my fiance, is we'll sit down together and we'll go name by name and actually, look at their records and decide together on what who we should vote for, like what person sounds like the best fit. And we do that with president, representatives, state representatives, sheriffs, down to the county assessor, the recorder,
Tax
even
assessment, yep.
even proposals,
Mhm.
because this year we have a lot of constitutional amendment proposals on Arizona's ballot.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that's been changing a lot. I here in my county alone, there's been the people that are currently in office are so corrupt. What is it? Six six of them of different from judges to representatives to tax assessors. They've been charged with federal indictments, and it's crazy that they're literally still running for office, and people are still going to vote for them. I just, when you look at the corruption at a state level, it opens your eyes. And what I want to get into next is the fact that, when it comes to 𝗬𝗓𝗣𝗧, a lot of people don't know, but they know about in 2020 the 3:30 a.m. drop in Michigan, Detroit specifically, right? So what a lot of people don't know is what actual votes were being dropped at that time were the 𝗬𝗓𝗣𝗧. And those were the ones that were being pushed out and being voted. But during that particular time, the Detroit representatives, or we should call them like what are they called? They're called election challengers or ballot challengers. The Republicans were actually pushed out. And there's images just like this, along with them starting to board up the windows because they were pushed out of being able to actually look at it, so far so that there was actual reports saying that the officials inside of the voter roll area right in here in the back were laughing about how they were being pushed back so far that they would need binoculars to actually see what was going on.
It's actions like this that is turning Michigan in Trump's favor, which we see. Like right now, it's still within the margin of error, but he's in some polls leading in every single swing state.
Yeah,
And
and one of the okay.
we saw this, and people remember this. People remember how they were treated during this process when they were trying to just do their civic duty.
Right. And they were and to take it even further, after this whole debacle, they actually changed the rules recently in Michigan to where that if they challenged too frequently, that they could actually remove them entirely from even doing it. Let alone the fact that Wayne County, which is Detroit, made it very clear that they really didn't want any poll watchers of the Republican Party, so much so that they approved over 2,000 Democrat poll watchers and challengers, but only 70 GOP. Now, that's recently been increased because it was called out, and it's up to like 500 or something like that. But still, 2,000 versus even if it is 500, it's absolutely bananas that they're allowed to do these things so blatantly obvious and not be called out about it. I mean, the problem with Michigan in itself, it's completely ran from top to bottom by Democrats. The governor, the SOS, the House and the Senate are all Democrat ran. And in this, what was funny about this is that they're gearing up to do the same exact thing, if not worse, in Wayne County, Detroit, and it has to do with they're giving out trainings nowadays for how to manipulate and teach these Democrat poll workers how to look at these ballots in a way that they can actually overturn the GOP's challenge of each one of their ballots that they may pull into question, which I just said a moment ago, if they do too many of those, then it will become an issue. See, recently, everybody is aware of the 2020 election fraud situation with that and how that 2 a.m. ballot came into play, but they don't really know the ins and outs of it. But what is his name? David Jaffa, who is a reporter, was actually the individual who talked about the Detroit leaks, which were the videos from inside of this showing all of these events. The photo that I just showed a second ago, with people being pushed out. Well, he actually was able to infiltrate a meeting, I guess you could say it is, a training session of one of these individuals from I think it was about a week or two ago in regards to this. So what it was is they were literally training people on how to do these different maneuvers to kind of finagle the system. But I want to just show that there's an hour and a half clip, and he recorded it all. It's like an hour and 40 minutes. You can find it on Rumble. But I want to show just the opening statement and see what you guys think about it.
And here we are. This is the part where I say it's top secret. And it really is. It's it gets a little cloak and dagger sometimes. But we know that the Republicans would like to know what we have in mind, and that we'd like to know how we characterize them. And they'd like to know a lot of things, and we'd like to try not to let them know that. So that's why we ask for confidentiality, and also because some of the people in the party are control freaks.
So, right? Just so you know,
this is the first time I've seen this.
Yeah. So this is brand new. It just came out today. It is posted on Rumble as well, but I got the names backwards. This was David Jaffa, who is the individual. He is a well-known Democrat poll watcher and ballot challenger in the city of Detroit, and has been for some time. So he gave an hour and a half. It was nearly an hour and 40 minutes of how to go through this. And right off the bat, he's like, yo, shh, don't tell nobody about this. Because when you actually go and watch this video, it is wild about the information that he provides in it. And I just quickly want to go over it because it was Mr. Trejo, the individual that was actually the one that was providing the information through watching all of this, and how he was able to infiltrate this and give us the actual bullet points of what occurred, if you don't want to have an hour and 40 minutes to watch. But basically, Trejo is also the individual that, like I said, he was considered the Paul Revere of 2020 for the city of Detroit, because he was the first report on the 3 a.m. dump and was able to provide the Detroit leaks. But in this, he details how the Democrats are effectively looking to dox election integrity activists as a way to intimidate them from even participating. And then there's several points on this, but Democrats specifically name drop the Election Integrity Fund as their opposition. Democrats boast of a large number of people that they have recruited and put into place to control the process, in which I'm talking about how they verify the ballots and can potentially kick the GOP out. The Democrats say that the electronic poll book, this right here, the poll book will be hidden from challengers and from election integrity activists. The election poll book is the only way to audit the ballots in real time against the paper ballots that they're looking at. So in 2020, activists noted that the electronic poll ballot had voters with birth dates in the 1800s, which was part of the problem of the 3 a.m. dump, and other obvious signs of fraud that came into place. But without access to that particular audit file or the poll book, there's no way to actually verify validity of any ballot.
Yeah. I mean, just the opening statement, as you said, confidential. If you're not a Democrat, don't allow this information to leak out. Like, that's a big old red flag. The fact that they are trying to control anything in regards to an election removes the idea that this election is free, especially in that area in Detroit. I used to live in Wayne County. I used to live in Lincoln Park. So this is scary.
Right. And there's more. There's more. I've got plenty to go over in this video. I mean, like, it goes from increased security that is favorable to the Democrats, so that way they're working in concert with the Democrats here. And what Jaffa was saying in that video specifically, this is a quote of his: "We have a really good reputation with the security people. We have a good reputation with all of the folks who work there. Introduce yourself as a Democrat challenger, a challenger from the Democratic Party, and you'll often get a smile of recognition." So they're literally working with these people, saying, "Hey, this is my guy. You know, if he nudges you, you know, maybe look at the guy who he's talking about." But also, the Democrats plan to excessively use state law to interfere with the election integrity workers, utilizing the MCL 168.7273. I'll let you guys go look at that and take a look at it. It's not very long. To screw over election integrity activists. And in that bill, or in that particular area, that's where it comes into play, where they're going, that's the new law, basically, that's saying that if you challenge it too much and it doesn't turn out that it's valid in their opinion, you're gone. You're out of there.
It's sad times we're living in. I mean, the fact that they put a limit on what you can challenge and who could challenge, and there's so much secrecy in this poll watching.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the Democrats are not inspecting the election. They're there to basically just attack other inspectors and make them, like, he goes over in this training. This is what I'm saying. In this training, he teaches them how to specifically attack other people from in a verbal way, obviously not physical, but inspectors, and make them ineffective at challenging the fraud. So
Doxing
it's
alone.
Oh, I know, it's crazy.
I mean, we deal with that on TikTok. I mean, I've been doxxed when I was in the military and when I started doing political content, and that was fun.
Yeah, and he also says specifically in this article that the ballots will be allowed regardless of any challenger seeing, because the challengers have little to no power to stop the process. A challenge, and a quote from him: "A challenged ballot is always counted." He literally says it in this video. So, I mean, the corruption runs deep in the state of Michigan, far beyond anybody's actual understanding of what was occurring during that time. But
can I clarify for our viewers what you just said? A challenged ballot is still counted. So if you get a ballot and the birth date on that ballot says 1800, it's still counted.
Yeah. And just to show some images from this actual, just to show that I'm not like saying this, you can go look at it on I don't want to show you the hour and a half that we have here. But this is their agenda. Basically, they go into detail about what's a challenger. And they specifically go into how to absentee ballots work, the process and counting. That particular area is where they start to talk about how they're going to respond. Or over here in under section 5C says things other challengers can do and how to respond. I mean, it's just wild to see these individuals going beyond their means to overtake an election that, you know, should be for the people. I mean, it's gotten so much traction.
There's the 𝗬𝗓𝗣𝗧 right there, absentee voting rules in Michigan, you know, for their military members or civilian members that may or may not reside outside the country. And, you know, it points to that post from Donald Trump where he says they're going to be using 𝗬𝗓𝗣𝗧, that, you know, in order to sway and cheat. And they did it last time, and they're going to try to do it this time. But I believe in this year, the American people, they learned from their mistakes last year. I think they're going to be much more observant, much more situationally aware. And you could look at this. I mean, yeah, you want to read it, Nate, or do you want me to read it?
Go ahead.
So Donald Trump says here, the Democrats are talking about how they're working so hard to get millions of votes from Americans living overseas. Actually, they're getting ready to cheat. They're going to use 𝗬𝗓𝗣𝗧 to get ballots, a program that emails ballots overseas without any citizenship check or verification of identity whatsoever. # foreign interference, or parentheses, excuse me. Remember, They say we have the most secure elections in history, and anyone can get a ballot emailed to them. They want to dilute the true vote of our beautiful military and their families, who Comrade Kamala has totally disrespected and abandoned. Republicans must act to stop them from stealing our military votes. Watch. Remember, if you vote illegally, you're going to jail. And you know, this aspect right here where it says she's forgotten our military. She doesn't care about our military. She doesn't care about our veterans. I mean, her and Joe, they still have yet to recognize the 13 fallen service members in Afghanistan from their horrible pullout. So, but that's a different topic.
Absolutely. And I mean, when it comes to this, though, I mean, we see it all across the country with where governors and election boards are trying to do their job and making sure that we have a safe, secure elections, in the sense that everybody on the voter roll, first of all, is alive. They're a real person and they're of the age to actually vote. But we're seeing all over the country, I mean, where they're trying to they're purging. In the state of Oklahoma, over 450,000 votes were purged from their voter rolls because they were deemed either not citizens or not alive. I mean, in the state of Ohio, they're doing the same thing. 160,000.
I think I sent you a picture of my state as well. What's interesting about that, you'll see it's over 200,000.
Now, going back to the state of Michigan, now the most interesting thing that I have here in regards to the state of Michigan, and why I'm focusing on it so much, is just because it's, first of all, it's a swing state, and it's a very crucial swing state. And honestly, it has to be one of the combinations for either candidate to win, you know? So in regards to Michigan, it's my home state. I'm currently in Texas, but it is my home state. I still have a lot of family up there. And that's why I pay attention to it, just because of what happened in 2020 and 2022. But this is what's far too interesting to me. So in the state of Michigan, they're saying that from the actual voter rolls themselves, there is roughly about 8.4 million votes, registered voters. Now, this is coming directly from the Michigan Voter Information Center, which is the Secretary of State of Michigan. You can see right there in the middle, registered Michigan voters, 4.837. Now, when I heard this, I was a little confused because I had somebody actually send me a screenshot of, you know, how many voters, which the number was a little bit different than the 4.8, but it was still roughly about 4.8. So I started looking into it. I was like, that don't make no sense to me because I'm from Michigan. So there's only just over, and this is as of recently, just over 10 million voters in the state of Michigan. You can Google it right now. More than likely, you'll see it's 10.33 million, or I'm sorry, 10.033 million people in Michigan total, right? But here's the issue that I'm having, because this math ain't mathing for me, guys. And you can pull this directly from the state of Michigan. You can see michigan.gov right here as of 2022. So we've had 2 years of change up to this point. But on this alone, the math ain't mathing, because of the age of under 18, there's 2.19 million kids, which means that they're not eligible to vote, right? I know it's kind of blurry for you guys, but if you expand your screen, you'll see it. There's 2.1 million children in the state of Michigan. So that's a quick, simple math for me. That's roughly 500,000 registered voters that don't exist. Because when you look at these numbers, you can see that there's 10 million, but 8.5 million almost are registered, meaning that there's only 1.5 million children. However, hello, state of Michigan, your own system is saying that you have a problem here.
Yep. I mean, like we were talking about this earlier, that math ain't mathing. And the information is out there. You have to open your eyes and pay attention. They're trying to make these sneaky moves to, again, take away your vote. I live in Arizona, another swing state. And we were just talking about unverified voters. In September, there were 98,000 unverified voters. And when I say unverified, it means they haven't gone through the verification process to prove their citizenship. So there was 98,000 in September 2024. In October of 2024, there's over 200,000. That number more than doubled. And the fact that this is occurring in every swing state, even states like Texas, it's extremely troubling. And what's also interesting is they're not talking about this, but the Biden-Harris administration is rapidly approving citizenship applications faster than ever before. And I wonder why. We have millions of people flowing through our southern border, which we'll get to that topic next Monday. But
yeah, so going back to what you said about Arizona, didn't a judge just come out in regards to them attempting to try and purge those from their voter rolls, kind of like impede that and say, no, y'all can't do that? Yeah. So, and that's not happening only in Arizona. I mean, as you can see here, the Department of Justice is literally suing Virginia for what they claim is violating federal law, prohibits on systematic efforts to remove voters within 90 days of election. However, the state determines their election laws. So they had a change in their election laws to make sure that they safeguard their election to remove the I think there was a couple 100,000 even in that state. What was it? The state last month in September, and then here we are at the beginning, almost the middle of October, where the federal government is now suing a state based off of their individual election laws. I mean, where does go ahead.
We really have to, think about this real quick. The constitutionality aspect of this, right? Because voting is covered in Article 1 and Article 2, right, of the United States Constitution, amended by Amendment 12. And then when it comes to Article 1 and Article 2 and Amendment 12 only talk about the structure of an election process, right? It doesn't talk about voting specifically at the state level. That's states' rights. That's Amendment 9 and 10. And anything not covered in the United States Constitution is therefore decided at the state level per the state's constitution. We have 51 state constitutions, or we have 51 constitutions in this country, one federal and then 50 state constitutions. This is a constitutional violation and an overstep of the federal government into states' rights. And the principles that this country is built on states' rights. And I'm pretty sure that we fought a revolution over overarching governments.
Absolutely. And going back to what you were talking about, where the state was trying to get involved within Arizona with people that were unable to verify their citizenship, the state of Texas tried to do that just recently as well. If anybody that follows me on TikTok or Facebook, they would have seen this video as well. But in regards to a most recent advisory that came out from Miss Adkins, who is the director of elections through the Secretary of State, she issued a service announcement basically to poll workers saying, hey, even if it says on their license that they're temporary or they're a non-citizen, you got to let them vote. And we're sitting here like, what? That literally means they're not a citizen. Well, she's like, oh, well, we can't, they could just still have that and not, they're waiting on their new one. Okay, well, then they'd still be able to provide some type of proof of information to show that they're actually citizens of the state of Texas, right? You would think.
Is she not? So I've lived in quite a few states, given my military background. I've lived all over the country, and I'm pretty sure when you go to get a driver's license, they give you a paper copy, a temporary, if you will, to provide verification that you're allowed to drive. And, this kind of solidifies, the necessity for, in my eyes, for voter ID.
Absolutely. But I mean, here in the state of Texas, there's a long list of items that you can provide at the polls or when you go to register to vote that shows that you are an actual citizen. Even if you're an immigrant coming from another country here and you get naturalized and you're able to vote, right? You get paperwork for that. It's not hard. But thank God there was enough pushback from people like 𝗦𝗡𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧, which is the AG here, and a lot of other organizations and groups saying, yo, this ain't going to fly. I don't know what you're talking about. We're going to sue you if you keep going down this way. Well, the actual Secretary of State finally came out and was like, yeah, we can't do this, Atkins, you know. So they're going to need something else to show. Well, no, duh.
Well, it's interesting. So this Secretary of State is stepping outside of her, her duties and responsibilities and trying to do something that's, against the Texas state constitution.
Right. And the person that issued this wasn't even the Secretary of State. She's just the director of elections. So she's not even the Secretary of State.
It's like, who are you? But it's like you have these people that are going directly against the fundamental principles to which not even, not just the country was founded on, but each individual nation state. And, that goes and that makes me think of 2022 with Katie Hobbs, our current governor, being the Secretary of State in her own election. You would think that'd be a conflict of interest, but nobody talked about it anywhere in Arizona, anywhere across the country. Nobody talked about that conflict of interest. How are you supposed to certify your own election? Because that's what Secretary of States do. They're charged with the responsibility of certifying elections.
Yeah, and a good friend of mine here in my own county is pointing out the fact that here in my county alone, we have likely 100,000 non-voters in Fort Bend, which is the county that I live in, that don't even exist. So that's just one county in Texas.
You sure they don't exist in a cemetery?
More than likely. Absolutely. More than likely. I mean, we're close to Harris County, which is probably one of the most, if not the most corrupt, county in all of America. So we're, let's not even talk about that. But even going any further than that, like we can go past ballots in the actual voting system, and we can show that they're trying to manipulate and interfere with this, not only through what we already said was, the court system, through social media, through search engines, and obviously the media itself, but also through our actual federal government, which is wild because here in the here's an article that's talking about the FBI quietly updating crime data stemming back to 2022. We can see that crime, they listed a drop of 2.1% drop in violent crimes in 20, but now it's been risen up to over double than what it was. And people literally vote on things just like this all of the time. So here we are showing federal government manipulating numbers that you can't say any other way that it's for this particular administration, because we've seen the issues with the job numbers. What was it back in July? It was 818,000 just over the last year that were improperly registered.
Yeah, those ghost jobs.
And this is the type of manipulation that we deal with on a daily basis. But no, there's many forms of fraud, and you guys need to start realizing that. And you can sit here and you can ask us, well, how do you overcome this? Well, first and foremost, you overcome it by, first of all, verifying that they're U.S. citizens. And how do we do that?
Identification, a verification process. And, I really don't want to get into next week's topic, but it's so hard to stay off of it, especially with that. It showed a 4.5% increase, a revised increase. What was the biggest change? Our population size.
Especially with the advisory that came out recently. I mean, they're purging people by the hundreds of thousands here in the state of Texas from the voter rolls too. Where are all those people coming from? But, a lot of people are like, well, what's your solution? What's your solution? Well, Congress already gave us a solution. It's called the SAVES Act that they've been trying to push for some time now. And yet it's still going nowhere. And it's just wild to me. Here's the bill. If you want to take a look at it, it's H.R. 8281. I mean, not only did they try and introduce this singularly by itself as a standalone bill, they also recently tried to and put it in the fiscal budgetary bill, the monolith of a bill that they passed, 2-3 weeks ago? But
Yeah.
no, they're like, nah, the Democrats like, nope, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. And of course,
Get ready for it.
Mike
They're about
Johnson
to
being
call out a
this
Republican.
Mike Johnson, the spineless little hoe that he is. Sorry for my language, but that guy, I'm sorry. I'm going to cuss a little bit, but that guy's a bitch. He straight up is. I've been telling people before he was elected in, and there was rumors of him coming into office and being the
Speaker.
Speaker of the House. I was like, y'all don't want him. Y'all don't want him. And every single month, it seems like I've been calling this guy out.
We talked about this for a while, especially when he was being considered. And I was like, well, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's see how it goes. But I'm 100% with Nate. He is very spineless. He doesn't stand on his conservative values. And like, this is a no-brainer. And the Democrats tried to, say that this is racist, that voter ID discriminates against marginalized groups of people. Are the Democrats of the mindset that minority demographics cannot get IDs when 95% of America has a smartphone?
So here we are with Mike Johnson. He just basically was like, nah, okay, well, we got to get a budget, so I'll just take that out. He bends over for the Democrats on a consistent basis. I mean, this is like the fourth time that I've called him out since October, when he was actually introduced as the Speaker of the House or elected in. I mean, it's wild to see how we continuously have to call out Republicans for being spineless fish. And yet we got people out there that are starting to step up and push back. But it's for the majority, it's just uniparty. And I'm tired of hearing it. Because in this bill, Mike, you got a little bit of details on this bill, right?
A little bit, but I don't want to get into the nitty gritty. But to kind of summarize, is it provides a verification process, and it gives several different methods of identification, like a driver's license, like a state-issued identification card, a military-issued common access card, a passport, like a birth certificate. These are documentations that you can use to verify yourself. And there's also combination methods. And the Democrat Party, with the aid of Mike Johnson, they just kicked this to the side, and they said, like I said before, that it's discriminatory. It discriminates against marginalized people, and that could be, that couldn't be further from the truth. This, this secures our elections so that only verified, eligible American voters can vote in our elections. And that has never been more important than now.
Yeah, and it's been a couple weeks since I read this bill, but it's only 26 pages, people. Like, this is what me and Mike do, is when people are like wanting to talk about a bill, we go read it. And it's 26 pages. That'll take you maybe like an hour or two, honestly. And I'm a slow reader. So in this bill, one of the biggest contentions with the bill is that they claimed that there was no way of them being able to provide proof of citizenship if they don't have it or whatnot. However, in this bill, if you actually read it, you would see that it actually calls for the creation of a system of verification through the system. So through a system where they can go online and verify that this individual, who they say they are, is a confirmed American citizen, and it'll give the details of who, what, where, when, why, whatever about this voter. So there's literally no reason not to pass this bill, because even if you can't provide an official document, an ID or a driver's license, which I just think is absolutely insane, because obviously Democrats think that minorities can't use the internet for some stupid reason. But there's a system that this will create for verification for those that don't have it. There's no reason to not pass it.
We're in 2024. This is 2024. This isn't the 1960s. This isn't the 1950s. There are so many different methods of, getting an identification card. If you're an adult, an ID is required for almost every aspect of life. And it's astounding that they're trying to use the same arguments that they used in 1960, 1970, 1980. It's 2024. Everybody should have an identification card.
Right. And, there's a couple other things, like we said with the ballots. If you're getting on a mail-in ballot, then make sure it's not being tampered with. Our good friend here, he also made a good point that the problem with a lot of people like myself is that, when they move out of state, they don't remove themselves from the voter rolls, which makes it easier for them to manipulate the votes.
Didn't this happen to you?
I've been getting, this is the reason why I'm thankful that he had actually brought this up, because yes, I just received a text the other day saying, hey, see, we see that you haven't requested your ballot yet. So I'm like, I haven't been a resident of Michigan for nearly 5 years. Why are you sending me this? Oh, of course I got no response. So I tried calling them, and they're like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. But, we have so many people doing that, and also the illegals. Like, we're not PC here. They're illegal immigrants. People that come here that are breaking our federal law, that they're trying to get, like Mike said it earlier, they're trying to fast track these people into citizenship so that way they can actually vote.
They're trying to establish so many different ways to make illegal aliens United States citizens. They're fast tracking the citizenship application process. They're giving illegal aliens temporary protective status. They're trying to pass legislation to allow illegal aliens to enlist into the United States military. Like, this is mind-boggling. This is despicable. It's cowardly, and it interferes with every American constitutional principle that has ever been established.
Right. And that's what we're going to be going in on Monday, man. When it comes to the absolute craziness around FEMA and how they're allotting money to the, a lot of people are trying to say that it isn't happening. We have documentation from the government saying that they're actually allotting money to these illegal immigrants, that Americans are not getting the services they need, while these people that aren't even a part of us, not contributing to our society, not paying taxes, are getting all of the benefits that we as Americans. So tune in on Monday for that.
They're getting more benefits than us. I don't know about you, but I don't have a $2,000 debit card.
Right.
I mean, and I for the people that went through the horrific events surrounding the hurricanes out east, my prayers are with you, and I'm so sorry that our government is not doing more to help you. A $750 loan? A loan? Are you serious? It seems like $750 is the magic number.
And we'll be going...
What was Maui? $750?
Yeah, and we'll absolutely be going into something that I recently just came a part of, and this is the one thing that I actually will give Mike Johnson credit for. He actually called out this whole scheme in regards to, there's no more money in FEMA. Yes, there is, and only 2% of it's been issued. So we'll go into that next time as well.
So, thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you back Monday, where we're going to be going over immigration, Kamala Harris's favorite subject, and the only subject that she loves to deviate so fast. And if you're not following us, please follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Rumble, Twitch, and Patreon. And we'll see you next time.